All right. We've got first up, let's talk to Jamie in Texas. He's calling because he is visiting a psychic eye surgeon. I have no idea what that is. Jamie, can you tell us what is a psychic eye surgeon?
Okay, so hi, Jamie in Texas. You may have recognized me. I'm the weird English guy. I have been to a psychic eye surgeon. I'm not going to one. This was a good number of years ago. Now I'm a skeptic,
Okay.
and I am a believer in science. My mother, however, is more spiritual, you might say. And we also, we're sort of a hippie-based family. So a lot of woo was bandied about, if not like religiosity, lots and lots of woo was bandied about the family, and all of our friends had thoughts and stuff. So here's the scenario. I have a congenital eye issue. It's actually part of a larger thing called Rubinstein-Taby syndrome. I have a partial case of that, which has resulted in heavy myopia and bilateral macular coloboma, scars where my retinas should be, most of them anyway. And you may know that leaves you at a higher risk, now I know, of early onset vitreous detachment. The gooey bits inside your eyes comes apart and you get floaters, right? Happens to a lot of people. So, in my early 20s, after a rather strenuous night of drinking with my friends, I was sitting alone, contemplating myself in a McDonald's bathroom, when suddenly what looked like a brown worm-like thing just appeared in my vision, and then over the next few hours spread to the other one. And I didn't know what it was, and I was a bit shook up about it. And then I went to see an optometrist provided through a charity in the UK. And the optometrist was extremely upset that I hadn't come and seen them sooner, and told me in no uncertain terms I was in high risk of retinal tearing, and it could ruin what vision I have permanently, and put like the absolute fear in me. And I started doing research. If you see any flashes or extra floaters or other distortions in your vision, you should treat it as a medical emergency, because retinal tearing, you have to get it seen to quickly. So I'm stressed. My mom is stressed. We get a second opinion from a private ophthalmologist who says, well, things look okay, I suppose, but they don't really give us any answers as to like, am I going to lose my vision or not? And they're like, well, just if anything changes, go to the hospital, which is never really a very gratifying thing to hear. And so my mum got desperate. She followed the advice of one of her friends, and one Saturday, I think it was, we got in the car and we drove to rural Wales to a house. We were greeted at the door by a man who, maybe I'm colouring my memory, was a bit of a wheeler dealer. And there was a rather nice new Range Rover, or Land Rover, out front of the house. And we were ushered in, and in exchange for 200 of our British pounds, an old man came into a dimly lit room with me and sat down and started to sort of mumble to himself. And then his accent changed to a sort of more plummy, posh voice, and he declared that he was a doctor, and he had come to look at my eyes. And
so was he like channeling someone? Is that the idea?
He was channeling an 18th century genius eye surgeon.
Interesting.
Ghost. What? And he gets right up in my face, and he says, yes, I see the problem. There are blockages. There are blockages behind your eyes. I will perform. And he does like 5 minutes of waving his hands around in a vaguely sewing motion in front of my eyes. In the meantime, I'm just completely baffled. And then declares that I'm cured, and we pay our money and leave. Now,
and he didn't give you like ether or something ahead of time for the pain? It's very... This is violating the 18th century physician's code, I think.
I would have liked a nice bit of laudanum. That would have been nice. Little bit of opium, please, Holmes. That'd be very nice.
Seed of the poppy.
None of that. Yeah, don't need any anesthesia when it's all done through psychic manipulation, and and it's such a bizarre episode in my life. I can bet. I'm like, did I dream that? Like, did I actually go to Wales and have a weird old man channel a quote unquote ghost to quote unquote do quote unquote surgery on my eyes? And it's like, okay.
What did you think at the
However,
time?
it was complete nonsense. My mum was so desperate to try anything. I didn't want to disappoint her. Now, she also promised herself and promised, I'll say God, but she doesn't really believe in the Judeo-Christian God anymore. But to the spirits that she believes in, she would quit smoking if my eyes didn't get worse. And they didn't. So she quit smoking and hasn't touched a cigarette in 20 years. And
silver lining.
And we laugh about it. We laugh about it now, but I wanted to tell this story to say just how bafflingly, obviously stupid some of these procedures are. People can still be taken in by them, and desperation will make people do very, very unwise things with their health. I could also tell you stories. I work for a major cancer charity here in the US now, and the heartbreaking stories of people calling in to try and get financial assistance to go for treatments that I know won't work. Oh, vitamin C infusions. I'm like, and I can't tell them don't. It's a waste of your time.
Why can't you tell them?
And money. We are bound to only. It's the whole, like, we can't disprove that they work. Like, there's no evidence they do, and we can say that if they ask. And we can also say there's no financial assistance for non-FDA approved treatments. We can say that, but we're not allowed to discourage them. It's ethics. Like, you can't tell people what to do with their own health, especially if you're not their doctor. Like, we're just a charity. We're there to help if we can. If they ask for, like, do we have any research on it, we'll tell them, no, there isn't any. Like, well, there's been research done and it all shows it's false. Take that as you will. But I'm personally screaming inside to see the desperation, and knowing that I've kind of fallen for it myself. I didn't, but I didn't tell my mom no. I didn't say, forget it, Mom. That's a waste of money and time. I went along with it as much for her sake as anything else. I didn't think it would work.
Was there any indication of how this might work? Like how, like let's just say, for the sake of the discussion, that this guy did manage to channel an 18th century genius eye surgeon. How is the, like, waving his hands above your eye supposed to work? Was there any insight into this?
The vague explanation he gave me is that he could remove the blockages through manipulating the spirit or manipulating energy or something of that nature. It wasn't really explained that well. I will begin the procedure. Oh yes, there are blockages. I will now unblock them. Wave hands, vague sewing motions.
You probably had too much of the black bile humor or something like that, right?
He wasn't even that specific. I think what it actually was a chancer's granddad was delusional, probably had Alzheimer's or something of that nature, believed he could cure people, and the guy was just a good salesman and was conning people into paying money to be psychically healed. And of course, then you just got the placebo effect, the chance, my eyes didn't get any worse. I didn't have retinal tearing. I mean, I'm starting to develop cataracts now, but I'm almost 40. It's not that unusual, and compared to the rest of my problems, it's very minor.
Well, I've looked into psychic surgery a little bit for my own debunks, and it's interesting. Quite a few people that practice this are really good magicians who they'll pretend to do the surgery. They'll wave their hands around, and then they start like showing like towels soaked in blood and things to make it look like they've done something
Hmm.
inside your body, even though there's no evidence of where that came from. So sometimes they're using sleight of hand techniques to make it look like this is happening. So did anything
Wasn't
like
even
that
any
happen? Did he
He
do
didn't
any?
physically touch me at all. There was nothing of the sort. He came in, waved his
It's
hands
like
around,
Reiki.
said, yeah, I have performed the procedure, left, and we were charged our money, and we left, and it was just
My
so weird.
goodness. Yeah, Ben, what you're saying reminds me of James Randi did like a debunk of psychic healers where he did the same sort of thing. Obviously, he wasn't like waving his hands like Reiki style, but he was doing the like psychic surgery where they like sort of press on you or whatever, and he would palm like chicken intestines or like some other like food intestine, and then he would like pull it out and be like, oh, that's not supposed to come out, and then he'd like put it back, palm it back in or whatever. Very entertaining, but like you can see, like to someone who is susceptible to believing that and who isn't as like keen-eyed, could totally get taken in by that, right?
Keen-eyed. Nice pun.
Yeah.
Yes, and the thing is that when someone's desperate, they will fall for these things. Even intelligent people will fall for these things. We're all susceptible to it. And even if you're not particularly susceptible, you will sometimes go along with it, like I did, to just not rock the boat. I think that's what a lot of people in religion, unfortunately, are. They just don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to upset their parents or upset their friends or whatever. And there's always that, and it's the nagging problems. Like, this is what faith healing and religion do. It's like, we can keep you healthy and we can stop and we can take away the fear of death. And these are two things that affect all of us.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And like when I was in medical school, people would always ask, because I was like super anti alternative medicine and all this stuff. And people, when I brought this up, my classmates would always say like, "Oh, why are you making such a big deal? If it like helps them deal with their stuff, why don't you just let it go?" I'm like, because they are wasting their money on this, and like someone is exploiting these patients, and like if we don't do something to protect our patients from these like shysters, who's gonna do it, right? Like I like it's bad enough that at least in Canada, chiropractors can call themselves doctors legally. Naturopaths can. I think homeopaths might even be able to. And like that's misleading enough. I know lots and lots of people who thought that chiropractors were a type of doctor and they went to medical school just like everyone else. And of course, that's not the case, right? What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, and this is an interesting discussion point that I've had with multiple people about the placebo effect and whether or not it is ethical to utilize the placebo effect if somebody's getting benefit from it. And I personally think that this is a violation of our oath to do things to actually help people. I think if whether or not the placebo effect works for them, it's only a subjective treatment. It's not actually addressing the issue that they're coming to you for, and it violates transparency and consent. I think if you, because the placebo effect relies on you uh, convincing them that it's going to work. It relies on them believing that it's working. So if you're not disclosing the fact that this thing doesn't work, then that's not getting consent for whatever it is you're doing. And I think that's, regardless of your credentials, I think that's not a good way to go, even if it does seemingly benefit somebody.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes, like, we have these discussions often. Um, Sometimes you have to tell hard truths to people, to your patients, even though you want to make them feel better and you want them to be happy. Like, it's important to let people know that they have a terminal diagnosis, for instance, right? Uh, Rather than trying to protect them by withholding the truth. At least that's the way we think of it here.
Yeah,
But that's very
we
interesting.
operate as well.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting call and very interesting discussion, Jamie. Thanks for calling in.